Have you ever stopped to think about what learning might actually look like in the future? Or maybe how we could completely rethink education, outside the usual classroom walls?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into something that's, well, often pretty misunderstood: homeschooling.
Mhm.
And we're not just looking at the things people already know about it, its strength. We're actually exploring what seems like a really revolutionary new frontier for learning at home.
That's right. We've got this great stack of sources here. One of them is this really compelling piece looking straight into the future, like where homeschooling meets the metaverse.
Okay, the metaverse. Interesting. So, our mission for you today is pretty simple, really. We're going to unpack these sources together,
Yep.
pull out the key insights, those nuggets of knowledge, and try to understand what's genuinely important about how homeschooling is changing, especially, as it potentially steps into these immersive digital worlds.
Exactly. This deep dive is going to explore how homeschooling can personalize learning so deeply, foster resilience, and then these incredible, almost sci-fi opportunities the metaverse might unlock for kids learning outside traditional schools.
Okay, right. Let's get into it. So, the source material really kicks off by laying out homeschooling's foundational strengths. It seems to suggest that often it starts because parents are looking for something uh, tailored, an education that fits their child's specific needs, their passions, their pace.
Yeah, and what really jumps out is how it frees students from that standardized pace you find in most schools.
Yeah.
In a classroom, you often have to teach towards the middle.
Right. Leaving some kids bored and others struggling to keep up.
Exactly. Homeschooling can totally flip that. The sources give some great examples. Got a kid who just flies through math. They aren't held back. They could be doing like advanced algebra, maybe even calculus years ahead.
Wow.
But say history is tough, you can slow right down, spend that extra time, find different ways in, make sure they really get it.
And it's not just the speed, is it? It's the style of learning, too, according to these sources.
Precisely. Homeschooling lets you lean into how a child actually learns best.
Uh,
Are they hands-on? You can do kitchen chemistry, build models.
yeah.
More visual, use documentaries, illustrated books,
Yeah.
auditory learner, podcasts, discussions.
So the real takeaway here isn't just, covering the curriculum. It's about creating those moments, those optimal learning moments that lead to real understanding and genuine engagement.
It sounds like a truly bespoke education, really.
Exactly. Handcrafted almost.
Another massive point the sources highlight is flexibility. Schedule and location. That's
Yeah.
huge. It means the world literally becomes the classroom.
Right. So instead of reading about marine biology.
You're studying it on a family trip to the coast. The sources even mention, like dissecting a squid right there.
Okay. Maybe not for everyone, but I get the point. Or history.
Yeah, visiting actual ruins.
Yeah.
Feeling the history of a place instead of just reading about it in a book.
That makes a difference. And this flexibility must be invaluable for certain families, right?
Absolutely. Families who travel, kids who are serious athletes with demanding schedules, or children with chronic health issues. Education isn't stuck in a building from 9 to 3. It weaves into daily life, adventures, those spontaneous moments.
Beyond the academics, though, the sources also really stress the impact on family bonds.
Oh, definitely. That increased time together, especially in a shared learning context, seems to have profound benefits for the family unit.
It lets parents get this incredibly close understanding of their child, doesn't it?
Yeah, not just how they learn, but their patterns, their real strengths where they need support, their personality. And that shared journey, it fosters deeper communication, mutual respect.
And it goes beyond subjects like math or science. It's about values, too.
Absolutely. It provides this unique space for intentional values integration, for character development. Families can weave their beliefs, their ethics, their life philosophies right into the curriculum and their daily interactions.
So it's described as more holistic, then.
Yes, exactly. The sources frame it as shaping character, instilling responsibility, nurturing a moral compass, forging a more cohesive family.
Okay, but with all that flexibility, choosing what to teach, deciding on a curriculum, doesn't that get overwhelming? How do the sources say families handle that?
While that freedom to choose, adapt, or even create your own curriculum is presented as a key strength, you're not locked into one mandatory approach.
Right.
You can pick resources that genuinely align with your family's goals, your worldview, maybe religious beliefs, or specific educational philosophies. The sources mention a few, like classical education, Charlotte Mason, Montessori, even unschooling, where learning is totally interest-led. The point is you tailor it.
And this freedom allows for subjects that might get missed otherwise.
For sure. Things like entrepreneurship, Financial literacy, maybe advanced coding, or really deep dives into specific history or art topics.
Yep.
It makes the education feel purposeful.
Okay, now, the elephant in the room. Whenever you mention homeschooling, someone asks, but what about socialization?
Always. And the sources tackle this head-on. They argue homeschoolers often get a different kind of socialization, potentially a healthier kind.
Different how?
Well, the idea is potentially less exposure to negative peer culture. The pressure to conform, the cliques, bullying sometimes.
Okay.
Instead, social interactions tend to be more intentional and, interestingly, more diverse in terms of age.
Mm.
Homeschooling families actively seek out groups, co-ops, sports teams, community projects, volunteer work, various classes.
So they're mixing with a wider range of people.
Exactly.
Oh.
Kids interact with different ages, different backgrounds, not just a classroom full of same-age peers. The sources suggest this can lead to more authentic friendships based on shared interests, not just proximity.
And counterintuitively, maybe even better social skills.
That's the argument. They can become more mature, more comfortable interacting across different age groups and social settings.
Interesting. And the final big point about traditional homeschooling seems to be about developing independence.
Yes. Self-motivation, critical thinking, learning how to learn on your own without that constant external school structure. Bells ringing, teachers directing every step. Kids often develop greater self-discipline, an internal drive.
Right. They have to learn to manage their time, set their own goals, take ownership.
Exactly. The sources argue this makes them more proactive learners, active seekers of knowledge, driven by curiosity, not just passive recipients.
And that builds skills like research, problem solving, critical thinking.
Skills that are absolutely vital for life, not just for school. Skills for navigating complexity, for lifelong learning.
Okay, so those are the really solid foundational benefits of homeschooling that the sources detail. Powerful stuff. But then they pivot, saying, well, that's great. There's this new era potentially emerging. Homeschooling meeting the metaverse.
Yeah, this is presented as a potential quantum leap. And just to clarify, the sources define the metaverse here, not just as, separate video games. It's more like a persistent, interconnected digital reality. Immersive, 3D spaces where you can interact with others and the environment, almost like stepping inside the internet.
Stepping inside the internet. Okay, so not just watching something, but being in it.
Pretty much. And the potential opportunities this unlocks for home learners are described as, unprecedented. First off, immersive and experiential learning. Education becomes an adventure, going way beyond static media.
Okay, this sounds cool. Give me an example.
Right, imagine studying ancient Rome by actually walking through a detailed virtual reconstruction, exploring the Forum, the Colosseum, maybe even interacting with AI versions of historical figures based on source data.
Wow.
Or picture learning biology by, shrinking down and navigating through a 3D model of the human cardiovascular system.
That's incredible.
It engages more senses, fosters way deeper understanding, and you could simulate experiments, complex chemistry, physics that would be too costly or dangerous to do at home.
So it transforms passive learning into active exploration.
Exactly. Then there's global collaboration. The metaverse basically dissolves geography. Meaning a history project on, say, a world event could genuinely involve students collaborating in real time from Japan, Germany, Brazil, all in a shared virtual space.
Bringing totally different perspectives.
Absolutely. Or virtual field trips. Imagine exploring the Amazon rainforest, the Great Barrier Reef, even the surface of Mars, simulated from real data, all from your living room.
That definitely broadens horizons. It fosters, cross-cultural skills?
Empathy.
That's the idea. A much broader worldview. And tied to that is access. Access to specialized resources and even expert mentors.
Well, it could level the playing field, right? Especially for families maybe in remote areas or interested in niche subjects with few local experts. You could potentially attend virtual lectures by top scientists, historians, artists in these, virtual auditoriums, bringing the university lecture hall experience home.
That's democratizing, isn't it?
Hugely.
Yeah.
The sources paint a picture. A kid obsessed with astrophysics participating in a virtual black hole simulation led by a leading astrophysicist's avatar. Or exploring digital twins' exact virtual copies of famous museums, labs, libraries. High-level experiences become much more accessible.
Okay, but online worlds. Safety is always a huge concern for parents. How do the sources address that?
Crucial point. They suggest that educational platforms within the metaverse can be, and likely will be, designed specifically with safety built in.
Meaning curated environments.
Exactly. Educational providers can create moderated spaces just for homeschool groups or institutions. free from distractions,
Yeah.
inappropriate content. With robust parental controls and educator oversight managing who interacts with whom and what content is seen, a safe digital playground for learning.
Got it. And just using this technology that develops skills in itself.
Absolutely. Interacting in the metaverse isn't passive consumption, it's active participation. Navigating 3D spaces, collaborating virtually, solving problems in simulations, maybe even creating digital content or environments.
These are all skills for the future workforce.
Precisely. The sources talk about developing advanced digital literacy, spatial reasoning, virtual collaboration, familiarity with AR/VR, critical thinking in digital contexts, innovative problem solving. It could be an incubator for future digital innovators.
And finally, there's the motivation factor, making learning fun.
Yeah, the interactive, engaging, often gamified nature of these platforms can be a massive boost for motivation and retention.
Gamified how? Like points and levels.
Could be. Badges, leaderboards, virtual rewards, collaborative challenges within these educational metaverses. It incentivizes learning, makes it feel more like an exciting puzzle or game.
Turning education into something genuinely enjoyable, reigniting that curiosity.
Exactly. Fostering a lifelong passion for discovery, potentially in ways that traditional approaches sometimes struggle with.
Okay, so let's bring this back to you, the listener. Our whole goal here was to sift through these sources, pull out the key ideas quickly but thoroughly, and hopefully spark some aha moments for you.
hmm Understanding these shifts, from the core strengths of personalized, flexible homeschooling to this wild potential of immersive global digital learning spaces, it helps you stay informed. Informed about how education is evolving and what skills might really matter down the road.
And as the sources really lay out, it gives us multiple ways to think about what school, learning, even social connection could actually mean in the 21st century.
Definitely different perspectives.
So we've covered a lot of ground. From those foundational strengths, personalization, flexibility, family connection, values, all the way to this potential future in the metaverse, immersive, global, engaging.
And the conclusion from the source material seems pretty clear. Traditional homeschooling already fosters resilient, self-driven thinkers. And the metaverse isn't just seen as another tool, it's viewed as something that could expand those possibilities exponentially, preparing kids for opportunities we might not even be able to fully imagine yet.
Right. The sources really paint a picture that the future of education isn't some far-off sci-fi dream. It's starting to take shape right now, looking, well, more exciting, more personalized, and way more interconnected than maybe ever before.
Yeah, it's a powerful vision.
So the final thought for you, based on everything we've unpacked from these sources today, what does this fundamental shift potentially mean for how you think about learning, about skills, and about connection in our rapidly changing world?